And we're live. And I forgot my water. Oh no. I mean, that's like a tradition, right? I take a drink. I mean, I could drink from my empty coffee cup here. Guys, it's just one of those days. Just wanted to, as I'm waiting for people to come, hi everybody. Welcome to Geek Speaks Greek. I am your geek, George O'Connor. Clearly speaking English, the Greek I'm speaking to in reference is Greek mythology. Every episode of Geek Speaks Greek, we talk about a different goddess, god, hero, or monster from Greek mythology. Today's a little bit of a twofer. It's going to be a bit of a hero and a bit of the monster that he's really very closely linked with. You really can't do one without the other. And it's going to lead into our discussion topic for Friday, too. Spoilers. Before I get into talking about that stuff, I just want to kind of mention, hey, a little bit of plug. I know it's backwards, but I had a new book come out yesterday. Look how fat this book is. It's like 250 pages of comics. It's called Unrig. It's a book, it's for all ages if you want, but it's really a book for adults about the political process. And actually, I've been getting a lot of mail from kids who are reading it too, which is pretty awesome. It was a lot of work. I mean, I don't want to make you guys hate it, but it is the reason why Dionysus hasn't come out yet, because I did this in between. Because this is a time in our country where we really need a book like this. It's for, it's just about all the things in our democracy that don't work as well as they could. Obviously, I'm speaking to people in the United States here, not for, I know people watch this all over the world. Things that don't work great in our country and different things you could do to maybe make them work better. I did it with a man named Dan Newman, and if you want to see Dan and I together, today at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're doing a book launch event. Can't go to bookstores like we used to, but with Word bookstores. You know Word, who used to host this when Geek Speaks Greek first started? It's going to be Dan and I in conversation talking about the making of Unrig. So I wanted to give a little bit of a plug for that, just in case you're like, having George talk at me for an hour a day just isn't enough sometimes. Sometimes I want 2 hours of that guy, and then you'll get it. Although I'll be with Dan. So hi, everybody. Let me put this down somewhere where it's not on my old coffee cup. Welcome to Geek Speak Greek, like I said. If you've never joined us before, you should know I have the best fans in the world, and it has become customary to begin every episode of Geek Speaks Greek, although I'm thinking of switching things up. I'll talk more about that later, perhaps. I tend to start it off sharing some of the amazing artwork that people back home have sent me. So up first... So last time we met, which was Monday, we did Typhon, the ultimate monster of Greek mythology. And the time before that was Friday, we did Echidna, the wife of Typhon. Together they are the parents of so many of the famous monsters of Greek mythology. So a lot of the pictures we'll be seeing today have to do with that. This is from Declan. Declan drew a pretty awesome take on Typhon. I love it. First, got all the different heads. I think it was really smart the way that Declan did some of them as just hints of eyes. You can see the flames coming out. There's a little thing here. It says sickle, because he's holding the sickle of Kronos, the adamantine sickle. That's how he defeats Zeus's big fight. If you don't know what I'm talking about, and you're like, what is this guy talking about? You want to catch up? You could go right now to if you want to see this live, don't go right now. But go to youtube.com/user George Olympians. I have all the old episodes archived there. I talk at great length about this battle between Zeus and Typhon. Whoa, what happened there? Oh. So there he is with his sickle. I like the way his wings are coming out the side. It's one of those paintings, pictures I talk about a lot, where it's really engaged every corner of the paper. And Declan, that's a great job. I also love the name Declan. It's just fun to say. Declan. Let's see what else we have here. This is from Jamie. And Jamie did a very interesting take on Medusa. Medusa, not normally considered a child of Echidna and Typhon, but actually some people do actually place her as that, so that's weird. It's like she was just, in some versions of myth, she's just throwing up a straight up snake monster. This is not one of those, because you can see we have a kind of split down the middle in the shape of a lightning bolt, which is interesting. Is it like Zeus? One half, we have the very familiar visage of Medusa as a snake monster. The other half, we have her as the beautiful priestess she was before she was transformed. If you want to hear that story, go back and listen to our one on Medusa. It's kind of a sad story. It's definitely a sad story. There's nothing kind of about it. It's one of those stories where you have to be like, oh yeah, just don't mess with gods no matter what. If you can help it, just try never to be noticed by a god, because even if they love you, somebody else won't and will turn you into a horrible snake monster. Now this is interesting. So yesterday, Jake, who has recently been sending us a lot of stuff, he sent us a picture of Bellerophon. By the way, I didn't say this up front. Bellerophon is one of the people we'll be covering today. So Jake, good job. You kind of helped me make that decision. Today, and he did the thing where he put it backwards so you could read it, he did the Titan Menoetius. And what's interesting about this one, it's definitely not a design based on my Titans. My Titans are just like kind of big, like, you know, naked guys with clouds in their hair. So this is like this really cool armor Menoetius, and he's got like, I don't know, some sort of sickle with like, it looks like, I think that's a human head. I thought it was a chunk of earth, and I looked at it closely. I have a suspicion this is probably from something. Maybe like God of War or something. I haven't played those games because I have a problem with them because he kills gods, and the one thing we know about Olympians is gods can't die. So I'm like, well, I have a problem right off the bat. I'm more of like an Assassin's Creed Odyssey sort of guy. Have you guys played that game? If you love Greek mythology and you love traveling around the ancient Greek world and just seeing what it would have looked like, oh my gosh, play this game. It's also only like $15 right now, so it's like amazing. But that is a great drawing. I really like the attention to the armor. I like the action. I mean, look at his sword. I would say, Jake, if you're listening, let me know where that's from, because I'm pretty sure that's got to be from God of War. It looks video gamey with his giant weapons, and the head on a chain, that seems like a very video game sort of weapon. Wouldn't be a good weapon in real life, I think. It'd be upsetting. I'd be upset if you threw a chain at me with a head on it, but it would only hurt as much as a head normally does if you get hit by it, which a headbutt does hurt, but it's not like a club, you know? All right, that's just a weird talk. Now, this is some pretty exciting stuff. Here are some pieces from Yehi. So, oh, that got all small. I'm sorry, it's taking a second. Okay, here we go. Look at this perspective. This is Yehi's version of Zeus, all charged up, lightning cracking off him, facing Typhon. And if you ever want to see, I drew this picture from the side, but there's a little tiny Zeus, but this is like over Zeus's shoulders. Look at that. I love this. And the light that's pouring off this drawing, it's so good. And then we have, also by Yehi, if you watch the Typhon episode, I talk about how after Typhon initially defeats Zeus and cuts out his tendons and sitting on his tendons inside of the cave, Pan and Hermes kind of mount this like this rescue mission to save his tendons, put him back in Zeus so Zeus can fight again, because he's just laying there not able to move because his muscles aren't attached to his bones. It's really weird and gross. And one version of the story, the version I didn't use but I talked about briefly, has Pan coming and trying to sell fish to Typhon. I'm like, Typhon is a monster that's bigger than the sky. How many fish are you going to get? So, yeah, he did a really funny comic where we have Pan in disguise. He's like, I got some fish to sell, I'm a lot of fish. It's a really funny comic. Go to Yehi's Instagram page to see it in full, which is Dora Isol 1980. I forgot. Yeah, he's probably here. Just take a look for it. But look, her stuff is so good. And the last thing from Yehi, this is pretty interesting. So this is, I think that I'm aware of, the first time two of my fans have collaborated. This is based on a pencil drawing by Megan. It's been inked, which is like when you go over the pencils, and colored by Yehi. And on top of it all, it's based on my Olympians poster. But this one has some extra characters. It's really spotlighting a lot of the relationships. I mean, some stuff's still the same. Like, you can see Zeus and Hera are still arm wrestling. But check it out. Like, there's Aglaia on Hephaestus' lap, you know? And, like, Ares and Aphrodite are full on open. And, of course, there's the Hermes. Megan does this kind of shipping together of Hermes and Athena. And there's their 3 kids that she's created. And, like, it's just all kinds of stuff. Like, then we can even see, like, Artemis. There's her girlfriend, who I think is Callisto. Like, there's all this stuff. Look, Heracles is with Hebe. And, like, for whatever reason, Eris isn't even interested in setting Dionysus' butt on fire. This is such a fun piece. And it's the first time, like I said, I think they've collaborated. And I'm like, wow, that's so cool. It's amazing. And I'll tell you, speaking from experience, it is hard to draw big groups of people together like that. And Megan drew more people together in her pencils than I normally do than like I did in my original poster. And then, yeah, he went and inked it and colored it. Great job, both of you. Let's see what else we have here. Whew, there was a lot today. So here's some stuff, and I feel like This is from Nora and Drake, and I feel like maybe some of these I actually did show, but their mom indicates maybe I didn't. I don't remember, so they're so much fun. I kind of want to go over them again, and there's some new ones anyway, so we'll do it quickly. If this is a repeat, I'm sorry, but hey, it's good to look at art that's like, especially good art, more than once. Oh, come on. Sorry, I'm hitting all the wrong buttons today. So the first one, and this is the one I'm like, I feel like I showed this. This is Perseus saving Andromeda, and I love this angle. I like the way that Andromeda is front and center, and she's closer to us, and she looks bigger. But like, there's Perseus, and that's actually a really nice take on Perseus. He's very charming, like, because he's also like one of the only heroes that's not a total creep, which is kind of a hint for today's episode as well. And then this one, I'm almost certain I showed too, where it's Heracles taking Cerberus up from the underworld. Or actually, I guess he's returning. Because if you see, he's facing Hera and Persephone. Because we talked about that. That's supposed to be, and like there's Athena watching over. It's supposed to be like the final thing. Like, you have to literally go to the land of the dead and bring the dog. And he goes down there, he's like, hey, uncle, can I borrow your dog? And Hades like, sure, bring him back by nightfall. Beautiful picture of Persephone. Look at the color. I like the way... Now, this is interesting. Is that Cerberus's 3 heads? If so, the way they're coming in each different angle, how long is Cerberus's neck? Cerberus is like a diplodocus or something with 3 heads, which is like kind of terrifying. Some more stuff. Now, this is right. We talked about how Cerberus's name actually means spotted. There we have a spotted Cerberus. There with Hades. Looks like they're in the grove of the Underworld, and off just the corner we have a little bit of Persephone. This has to be Aphrodite, right? What else could that be? Look how beautiful she is. And then we have, I think this is Aphrodite with Spot or Cerberus. Which I'm like, I like this. We're kind of mixing stuff up. I mean, who doesn't love dogs? I know a couple people don't love dogs. But like, for most people love dogs. And why wouldn't she? Then this is definitely one. This is by Drake. What is going on here? He loves those space scenes. That's definitely a Mount Olympus. But who's that figure? He kind of looks like Hades to me. Maybe it's Hades coming up. Nope. It's Apollo. It's Apollo heading to Olympus. Apollo trying a new color. You know, funny thing? I have noticed this myself. I maybe mentioned this. When I draw Apollo and Hades in black and white, they kind of look exactly the same. So that makes a mistake. That makes a lot of sense. I would confuse them. A beautiful echidna. And look, we talked about, does echidna lay eggs? And I'm like, probably, I guess. Look at the eggs. We have all the other creatures coming out of the eggs, including, little Nemean lion. Oh, it's so cute. And then, man, look at this weird take. I love it. On Typhon with all the different heads. And that looks like, is that Orthus or is that Cerberus? And I think that's the Sphinx. And there we have Echidna on the side. I like the way we have like a lot of characters just kind of popping in the side. And then I think this we have is another just terrifying Typhon with all the heads and the wings. That was a lot of art. That's amazing. Apparently, the Nora and Drake's family had just been on vacation, so a lot of stuff accumulated. Sorry if I forgot to show stuff on Monday. I could have sworn I did, but like I said, when it's that good, it's worth seeing it twice. All right, here is something. Oh, some of my computer's going real slow, guys. Oh, all right. Now, Moira sends in work a lot. Look at her amazing Typhon. Another one where we're using the entire page, and like I like the way that she's drawing his body like it's just a swirl of like black mist and clouds, and then the heads are kind of coming out. Like we have a serpent head there. Like what's that one with the crest? It's like a serpent with a wig on, or maybe like some sort of dinosaur. Like that one looks like a snapping turtle. They're all kind of reptilian and scary, and I love it. And then, here's some ones that have just come in since I started. I didn't even see them yet, so let's hope they're good. Of course they're good. Everybody. Oh, this one's huge. Let's see if I can get it smaller. I might not be able to. Oh, here we go. This is another one. Somebody did a drawing in anticipation of today. Look at this. Bellerophon. Look at the angle. It's him coming towards us. And unless I'm mistaken, I think this is Bellerophon. Like, we're looking above, and he is riding Pegasus, which we'll get into that, why that is a thing. He's holding a spear. We'll also get into why that's a thing. This is such a cool angle, and it's so smart. Wait, who did this one, though? I should look this up, right? This is from... Oh, that's from Liam. So, Liam, thank you so much. That's an amazing angle you chose, and that's great. And then... This is from Ranka and her family. Now, Ranka has sent us stuff before, and as it turns out, like, both her mother and her father are also super talented, and I think they made a joke about how even though Typhon is the king of monsters, and he's the dad of all monsters, he still has to take out the trash. And so here we have an incident. Here's Typhon. Look at these heads. Like, what is this head, this monster? It's like goofy guy with pipe. I mean, that is pretty scary. I think that's Donald Duck, pink elephant, some sort of snake, and they're carrying out the trash. And I'll read it really quickly. I have to get the proper sibilance for this. Echidna in her cave is going, "Don't forget to sort the recycling." And it's just, this is from Ranka's dad. That's how he's identified. He signs his work as Ranka's dad. I gotta love it. Now here's Ranka's. Ranka's done the trick where it's backwards. There is Cerberus, and he is guarding the entrance to the Underworld. And I guess this right here, that's got to be Charon escorting some unfortunate... Well, I guess he's fortunate he's getting escorted. I guess you're not that fortunate if you're dead. Probably most people prefer to be alive, but like they're just escorting a recently deceased person over, and Cerberus is all like, "Oh, we'll let you through once." Once. And then finally... This is from, I'm assuming, Ranka's mom. She didn't sign it the same way. But look at this. Look at this great version of Cerberus. Snake tail, giant dog heads. Look at the little Heracles in the corner. And the giant food bowl that says, "Good boy." What is that bone? What is he eating? That's like a woolly mammoth thigh bone or something. Which makes sense. He's a dog the size of an elephant. Or, actually, I'd say it's quite a bit bigger than an elephant. He's a big dog. He's a big good boy. So, that was a lot of stuff today. Thank you. Today's been a little bit crazy, so I didn't get a chance to kind of assemble stuff from other sources, as I sometimes do. I know some people have expressed to me in the past that for whatever reason they can't send stuff to my email. I just didn't have a chance. I've been in meetings all morning. Some exciting stuff. I mean, a lot of stuff's about my new book that just came out in Rig, plug again. Stuff talking about Dionysus, talking about all kinds of stuff. It's been the craziest day around, and I'm sweaty as usual. If you want to catch old episodes or episodes you missed, or just want to watch them again, please go to my YouTube, youtube.com/user/George Olympians. If at all possible, if you can send me your drawings, please send it to email at georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com. Not sure. Some people have problems with that, like making it work. I'm not really sure why. Maybe you can have like a parent or something do it. Maybe there's like a list. Maybe it's a school email address or something. I'm not sure. But it makes me sad when people send me beautiful artwork and I don't have a chance to show it. So, that was still pretty long, darn it, because I have a lot of stuff to say today. So today, inspired by talking about Typhon and Echidna, I was like, I kind of want to talk about some of their kids. And especially in the case of the creature we're talking about today, when you talk about the Chimera, who's one of the kids of Typhon and Echidna, you got to talk about the hero that ended up fighting the Chimera, Bellerophon, which we've already seen some pictures from him. But I'm going to start first doing some drawings, if I may, of the Chimera. Now, the Chimera, its name, actually is something you might still hear to this day. A chimera is an organism that is made up of one or more... Oh, no, it's not made of one animal. That means I'm a chimera. Two or more animals. So, like, if you had, like, an animal that combined a dog and a cat, which would be more or less impossible, of course, but it would be, that's called a chimera. It's named after this creature. Its name was, it's like a conglomeration of these weird creatures. The chimera of myth is normally referred to as a child of Typhon and Echidna. And the first two mentions of it, we get it in those early two sources that I always go back to, Homer and Hesiod. They're like the earliest accounts we have, and the chimera is mentioned in both. Now, my version, I'm going to go with the more familiar version first, then I'm going to draw my version. In Hesiod, he actually refers to the chimera as a tricephalus, which is a super fancy Greek way of saying three-headed, which is kind of a thing like people are like, he's got three heads. Or actually, she. Let me get this straight. Chimera is a lady. I don't want to be misgendering her here. And her three heads, according to Hesiod, are lion, goat, and sometimes it's translated as dragon, sometimes as snake. I tend to do it snake myself, but the dragon thing makes some level of sense too, because another thing about the chimera, in every version, the chimera breathes fire, which that makes sense. Now, the way you would often see the chimera pictured in ancient Greek myth, I'm actually going to turn this sideways, because that's kind of hard to see. I'm going to make it, has the head of a lion, and it's like, even though she's a she, you almost always see it a maned lion. So it's like, I don't know, that looks like a male lion to me, but big mane, which makes sense. One of her siblings is the Nemean lion, so we know there's some lion in the mix. Also, we're talking about Typhon. He's got 100 different heads. Each head's a different creature, so probably one of those heads was a lion too. And then you normally see, in the classic versions, Chimera's body is just pretty much straight a lion. Weirdly, like I said, a male lion, but whatever. We won't get into that. So far we're just looking at pretty much a lion, right? But we also know it's tricephalous. It's three-headed, according to Hesiod. Now this is weird. Well, first I'm going to draw the less weird head. So snake in the back, his tail, her tail, gosh, gotta get it, is a snake. Okay, that's pretty weird, but it also fits. Like, tails shaped like snakes. I can work with that. This is where it gets totally bizarre. The third head is a goat. And the goat head, that's a terrible goat head. Let's give it a beard. Just kind of rises out of the middle of the back. Also has a couple of hooves there. So it's just like half a goat somebody stitched onto the back of a lion and then just put a snake on the tail. It's weird looking. Also, in a lot of versions, that's the head that breathes fire. I think they did that because they felt bad. They're like, okay, that part's scary. That part's scary. That part looks silly. What if I tell you it breathes fire? Okay, that's better. All right. So that is the version that you often see people depict this as. Now, this is an instance, and I feel like there's been a lot of these. I always say Hesiod above all. I went pretty much Homer for this version. And Homer is a little bit before Hesiod. Homer also mentions that the Chimera is a mixture of a lion, a goat, and a snake. He never specifies three heads, though. And actually, the way he phrases it is what led me to make my version. He says, lion in the front, goat in the middle, serpent in the rear. And that does apply to this. If you look, lion in the front, goat in the middle, serpent in the rear, but it's a weird looking creature. I wanted to go something that's a little bit more combined together. So first I'm going to draw a lion in the front. Even though, like I said, she is a she, I did give her a mane, because you know what, the mane looks pretty cool. So there's a lion's face, the big mane, flame coming out, because my Chimera really only has, only the one head. So that head's got to breathe the fire. Now the goat in the middle part, I gave the Chimera a lion's foreclaws, or four paws, or four legs, whatever you want to call it. Let's move this over a little bit. But then I also gave the lion some goat horns, because that would look pretty awesome, I thought. And then his body, or her body, I gave her goat hooves in the back. Like, almost like she's like a satyr or something like that. And that makes a lot of sense to me, because goats can kick really hard and such, and they can butt their heads. So you have, like, kind of the two coolest attributes of, like, the goat in here. The lion speaks for itself. We all know lions, ferocious faces, claws, they can rip you up. But the back claws, this is for kicking, this is for butting heads with the horn. And then the tail's like a serpent. Now, I think, honestly, sometimes I've drawn it with the snake head there, too, but I'm like, it's getting weird, but just give it, like, a kind of lashing snake tail. So that's my version of the Chimera, which doesn't necessarily match up with the version that you'd often see depicted in Greek art, but I'm still holding true to the description that we see in Homer. Now, breathes fire. There's a weird bit, I think it's in Hesiod when he talks about this, where he describes it as immortal, or made of immortal stock or something, but then we know it also dies. So I don't know what to make of that. So Hesiod maybe is just, I don't know. This is one of those instances I'm not using Hesiod as my main source for the Chimera. And the Chimera breathed fire, ate people, did the typical monster stuff, and in most versions lived in a place called Lycia, which was on the Anatolian Peninsula, what is now Turkey. And just lived there, and there was an area all by itself. People were like, don't go there. There's like a Chimera. It's going to burn you up and eat you. And everyone's like, okay, we won't go there. Now, let's talk about our hero, Bellerophon. Now, Bellerophon is actually somebody who I've done design work for. And you can even, if you type in George O'Connor Bellerophon, the picture comes up somewhere online, here or there. I'll tell you the story behind this. Remember how I talk about how after I finish Olympians, I'm going to do Asgardians, and then I'm going to come back and do some Greek myth stories? I actually drew Bellerophon and the Chimera as a tryout for those books. Like, I've actually put together a pitch. And one of the first stories I want to tell is the story of Bellerophon fighting the Chimera, because it's a cool story. Doesn't tie in super closely with any of the Olympians, so it was never something that was really an option for the series Olympians, which of course has to talk about Olympians. But Bellerophon and this story, it's pretty neat. And like you'll see, it touches on a lot of different parts of mythology, including some stuff I'm going to kind of gloss over today, just so that I don't, well, you'll see why. I'll get to that when I get there. Let me draw really quickly Bellerophon. This is honestly, guys, it's a pretty boring design because Bellerophon doesn't have any huge attributes that really make him come out. When I designed him, I gave him just a typical warrior's helmet. I made it a little bit more angular than you would normally see. Like it was almost a geometric. Just no real particular reason. I just want to give him a little bit of distinct. There's his eyes. His eyes are the color of the sea, which should give you a clue about Bellerophon. He has a crest on top of his head. It's made with horsehair. It's another interesting clue. And then, just from there, he's just kind of like your typical Greek hero. Got like armor. He's got pretty good muscles. He's no Heracles, but he's pretty built. He's got a spear. I feel like that's really key for Bellerophon. Dude's got to have a spear. So there's a quickie drawing Bellerophon. There's really not much to him. When I finally do his story, I'll probably go in and give him something a little bit more visually distinctive than the things I mentioned, just to make him look different than any nameless soldier. So Bellerophon, his name is actually a name he takes later in life, much like Heracles. The way Heracles is born Alcides, Bellerophon is born Hipponus. Hippo means horse, which, again, that's a clue. Okay, because I'm just going to tell you. I don't know why I'm being so... So he is the son... Wait, hold on. He is the son of Glaucus, who is the king of Corinth. In some versions, he just straight is. In fact, Homer seems to indicate he's the son of Glaucus. But think again, we're going to go back to Heracles. The way Heracles had like a quote-unquote mortal father, but his dad was really Zeus. Bellerophon's dad is really Poseidon. And you're like, oh no, because we know something about Poseidon. When Poseidon has kids, they tend to be monstrous. Either it's in appearance, like Polyphemus, or sometimes it's in deeds, like Theseus. Theseus is the greatest monster of them all, and he was actually super hunky. So Bellerophon, I don't like to judge someone on their family. Like if you might have a terrible dad or a terrible mom, but you might be a great person. Or you might be an awesome mom and you might have a stinky kid. I don't know. I don't like to judge this way. But when it comes down to Poseidon, I'm kind of like, And there's a lot of stuff in Bellerophon's life that you could kind of be like, what's up with Bellerophon? What really happened here? So his mom is, actually, depending on the source, sometimes his mom's name is Eurynome, which means wide name, and sometimes it's Eurydice, which means wide something else. But I think this is one of those instances where Poseidon did the old trick of appearing as Glaucus, and he was like, and he was with Eurynome, and then like, so it's kind of like it's both, but like this guy definitely has some serious god blood in him for sure, which is really funny. We'll get to this later. So there's a lot of stories about his early life, and sometimes it's a little bit, and a lot of them are contradictory or tell different sources. But basically, so I mentioned his real name is Hipponus, right, or his birth name. He becomes Bellerophon. There is a nobleman named Belleros who, when he's a young person, for some reason he kills. It seems to be hinted it's a self-defense thing, but like I said, he is a son of Poseidon. And he gets the name Bellerophon because Belleros was the guy, and Phon means the killer of. Like the way Hermes is called Argophontes, because he is the killer of Argus. So people call him like the killer Bellerophon, Belleros, which is kind of a messed up name. Now, some people argue that. They also say he's called that because a Belleron is somebody who threw missiles. Not like a missile like we knew it today, like a spear. And spear is definitely the weapon of choice for Bellerophon. I think that's probably more likely because the Bolero story, it just sounds, because first of all, it's not, his name is Bellerophon, not Bellerophontes, which would have been more accurate for that. Although I guess sometimes he is called that. But anyway, I'm getting off base here. He kills this person. Sometimes it's not even this guy Belleros. Sometimes it's his brother who has like different names in the versions. Basically, Bellerophon kills somebody and has to go into hiding. It's like, he doesn't go to jail, but they're like, you know what, you need to get out of here. Glaucus, who is the king of Corinth, is like, yeah, you need to go lie down. You're banished from here. And this is where it gets kind of, bear with me, we're going to do a lot of kingdom hopping here, right? So Bellerophon, let's just call him Bellerophon now. We're going to drop the Hipponos, because if he killed Belleros, he's definitely Bellerophon right now. He flees to Argos, and the king there is King Protus. Not Proteus, Proetus. And King Protus is friends with his quote-unquote dad, Glaucus. And he's like, okay, you come stay here. And he accepts him into his court, and we're not really sure what his adventure's there, but then something happens. Proetus is married to a woman named Aglaia. Not like Aglaia the Charite. This is another woman, she's named after the Charite. She's just a mortal princess, or queen. But Aglaia says, well, some versions of the story say Aglaia saw Bellerophon, who's beautiful, of course. He's the son of Poseidon. She sees him, she's like, hey, Bellerophon. And Bellerophon's like, no, I'm not going to fool around with you. You're married to my father's friend. That would be bad. If that's true, good on you, Bellerophon. However, the story that she tells, Aglaia tells, is that Bellerophon was hitting on her in a creepy way and wasn't taking no for an answer. It was like, come on, I love you, I love you. Either way, this information, honestly, I'm inclined to believe her. Like, this sounds more like the guy he's already known as the killer of Belleros. Makes me a little bit worried about this guy already. And then he comes and he starts hitting on the queen in a really creepy fashion. Okay. So her husband, Protus, she's like, you have to kill him. And he's like, I don't want to kill him. I don't want to do this myself. Protus is not, I don't know if this is because he's a good guy or he just doesn't like dealing with stuff. He gets an idea. And he's like, okay, clearly there's a problem here, Bellerophon. You can't stay here. You need to go. I'm going to write you this note. Take this letter. I'm giving you this letter. Don't open it. Don't open it up, Bellerophon. I see you. Don't open that letter. You take this letter to my good friend, Iobates. Gosh, where is he? I forget what kingdom he's in. Oh, he's in Lycia. Where have we heard Lycia already? That's where the Chimera lives. And he sends him to go to Lycia, to another court. He's like, okay, so I get it. You have to hang out. You murdered somebody. Not cool. But my queen, that's not working out either. Go to this third place. Bellerophon shows up to Lycia, and he has the note, and he gives it to King Iobates, who opens the note, and he's like, the note says, hey, it's signed Protus. Please kill this guy. I don't want to do it myself. He's really passing the buck here. Like, he's really not taking care of it. And Iobates is like, I don't want to kill this guy either. I don't know if they were just good guys or they weren't squeamish, or maybe Bellerophon, he is the son of Poseidon. Maybe he looks big and terrifying. I'm putting my bet on that one. And he's like, well, I don't want to do this. But he gets an idea. They've been having a lot of trouble outside of town on the edge of their kingdom, where this giant monster called the Chimera has been burning everything and eating everybody and just wreaking general havoc. And as far as they know, the Chimera is invulnerable and immortal. And even though this dude is kind of big and scary, they're like, I bet that Iobates is like, if I send Bellerophon to kill this creature, he'll just be burnt to a crisp before he even gets close, which seems like a pretty good bet. Now here is where we get into some sneaky, treaky stuff. Sneaky, treaky, it doesn't make any sense. So what Bellerophon is really famous for, not just fighting the Chimera, Bellerophon tamed Pegasus. Now I don't need to go into Pegasus, but I'm just going to say, Friday's episode, I'm doing Pegasus. So I'm going to glance over this stuff. We're going to do it really quickly. I want to point out some funny details here, though. Basically, Bellerophon, he gets a heads up from his dad. No, not Glaucus, because Glaucus is like, go away. And through passing of the buck, he's going to get killed. He gets a tip from his real dad. His real dad's like, hey, there's a winged horse that hangs out in this one fountain, comes down for a drink in Lycia. You should totally go and grab that horse. And you could use that horse to fly and kill the Chimera. So he does that. Now now I have to get in close because we have to stop this. Okay, son of Poseidon. Pegasus, and I should have maybe done Pegasus first, but I think we know this. Pegasus is the son of Medusa and Poseidon. So basically his dad's like, go grab your half-brother and tie him up and fly on your half-brother. Oh, by the way, who is a winged horse. Fly on his back to go fight the fire-breathing monster. And none of the versions that you read really kind of talk about how weird it is that Bellerophon, who famously tames Pegasus, is the half-brother. I don't know if you guys heard that. My cats. Hey, quit it! My cats. So him and Pegasus are brothers, and he's riding his brother like a horse, and his brother is a horse, so it makes sense. I'm going to quickly draw a picture of this. Even though we're going to go greater into this detail on Friday, it's just too funny. So, like, here's, like, it's Pegasus, and he's got, like, his mane, and he's got his horse legs. This is a not great drawing. He's got his wings. And then on his back is his brother, Bellerophon. He's like, hey, bro, how you doing? And they're riding together through the firmament to the edge of Lycia, where this horrible monster, the Chimera, lives, who, so far as we know, is invulnerable and breathes fire. Now, it's lucky Poseidon did this, because I think what would have happened otherwise, if it hadn't been for Pegasus, he would have walked up, and he's tough, he's strong, he's, a demigod, but still, like, the Chimera just would have made Bellerophon flambe. But because he attacks from above, the Chimera's, the fire it spews isn't as potent. Here's the thing, going back to the dad, right? The dad of the Chimera is Typhon. And we talked about this. Typhon is often associated with fire. He's actually kind of representative of a volcano. In fact, it was believed after Typhon's final defeat by Zeus that he was imprisoned beneath Mount Etna, and that's where the smoke and flame would belch forward. So there's a lot of thought that perhaps the Chimera was like a volcano too. So if you're on the ground, the fire is very deadly. But if you're attacking from above, it's going to shoot up certain amount of level, but it's going to come back down on the Chimera herself. And it's going to be really hot. The Chimera is tough, no matter how you slice it. Bellerophon would have a real fight out in front of him. And Bellerophon's strategy is pretty brilliant. And it would be like worthy of Athena, but I'm betting because he is the son of Poseidon, Athena didn't help him. Maybe Poseidon helped him. Maybe he was just actually kind of a smart guy. The way he fights the Chimera, he takes that spear, that important spear, like I said, it's really central to his character, and he, instead of putting a normal point on it, the spear's very long. Like this spear isn't long. Pretend it goes down like 20 feet. On the tip of it, he puts a big hunk of lead. Just the metal, lead. Lead is pretty easy to melt for a metal, but it's like gets super hot and such. So he flies over the Chimera on the back of his half-brother, which is never going to get weird to say. Oh, like not funny to say. And he holds this spear above the Chimera's mouth, and the Chimera is belching her flame and her heat at Bellerophon, but he's able to keep out of the range of where it would incinerate him just enough by flying on Pegasus. But that lead starts melting, and he shoves it inside the Chimera's mouth. And this is another reason why I feel pretty strongly the Chimera. Well, that's the wrong picture of the Chimera. Why the Chimera only has one mouth? Because that lead goes inside the Chimera's mouth, where it's the hottest yet, as the flame is just coming forth out of them, and the lead melts and goes down the throat of the Chimera, and the Chimera suffocates. It's choked to death on burning lead. It's pretty harsh. And so he defeats this monster. Like this, one of the children of Typhon and Echidna. This is quite the accomplishment. And, he's also tamed Pegasus doing it. It's a pretty cool story. The visuals on this is amazing. So then he flies back to Iobates. And he's like, say, can't help but notice, I'm pretty sure you sent me out there to die. And the reason this is confirmed for him is Iobates has his soldiers attack. I pointed the wrong picture. Attack Bellerophon. All these Lycian soldiers attack him. Bellerophon, like I said, he's actually, it's not like a case we're talking Perseus here, where Perseus got a lot of help. He did get a lot of help. This dude could really handle himself. He murders the soldiers. Like they're coming at him. He just defeats them all in single combat. He goes up to Iobates. He grabs him by the throat. And he's like, what on earth? And Iobates is like, okay, look, I'm sorry. Okay, like I got this letter. He pulls out the letter. You weren't supposed to know. I don't know what you thought this letter was. If anybody gives you a sealed letter and tells you not to open it, it's probably them telling you to kill you. Anyway, I was told to kill you. I don't want to kill you. I want to give you a chance. I wanted you to go and maybe fight the Chimera because I knew you could do it. And I don't think Bellerophon's buying it. So what Iobates does, he's like, tell you what, how about you marry my daughter? I'll make you the new king. Now, the daughter's name changes, like literally every version of the story, she has a different name, so I'm just not going to say her name. And that's exactly what Bellerophon does. He marries the daughter of Iobates, he takes over as king, and he gets to be the king of Lycia. Boom! Happy story, right? Oh no. Now, for reasons we're not really sure, something happens. I could maybe do some deeper research on this, I could use some conjecture, but he falls out of favor. I think he is, after all, the son of Poseidon. Like I said, I don't want to impugn a family, but if they're the son of Poseidon, I have some bells raised. And there's a lot of that story, like he killed Belleros, or perhaps he killed his brother. And there was that whole weird thing with the Queen Aglaia. Like, there's some stuff, he falls out of favor. And he becomes, as the term goes, he becomes hated by the gods. And there's little clips, you actually see a little mention of it in the Iliad when somebody's recounting the story. They call him hated by the gods, and it seems he loses his kingship, and he wanders around. He still has Pegasus. And this is the finale. And this is maybe even more so than fighting the Chimera. Maybe even more so from taming Pegasus. People know him for this. He gets it in his head, Bellerophon, a fatal lack of hubris. He's like, I am great. I killed the Chimera. I defeated the Lycians. I became their king. I tamed Pegasus. I deserve to be on Mount Olympus. And he hops aboard his half-brother, the horse, the flying horse, and he flies up to Mount Olympus. And the whole way there, he's roaring his challenge, like, make way, here comes Bellerophon. I'm going to be on Mount Olympus. And he's flying closer and closer. And the gods are kind of watching this. They're not scared of him. Maybe Poseidon's even a little bit like, not my son. But they're like, they see this coming. And if you remember, think back to the episode I did about Zeus. One of Zeus's big roles, one of his big duties, is to serve the divine order of things. If you commit murder, he might take you out. If you go against the natural order, you resurrect someone, he'll take you out. If you are a mortal who wants to become a god, Zeus is going to take you out. And depending on the version of the story, sometimes Zeus just straight up throws the lightning bolt and kills him. But then that's like, how does he not kill Pegasus? The version that's kind of more interesting, either Zeus sends or Zeus becomes a gadfly, which was like a horsefly, we would call it nowadays, and flies down. And as this guy is rising higher and higher above the earth, escaping the surly bonds of gravity, challenging Mount Olympus itself, this gadfly lands on the back of Pegasus and just bites him right on the tuchus. And Pegasus bucks and goes nuts because it hurts, because he just got bit on the butt. And he kicks off, not meaning to, but he flings off Bellerophon. And Bellerophon plummets to the earth below. And sometimes he survives. Maybe he loses the ability to walk, or maybe he's blind, or sometimes he's just straight up killed. But that is the end of Bellerophon. He dared to challenge the gods, and he paid the price. So I think I pretty much got everything I wanted to say there out of the way about Bellerophon. It's pretty cool. This is definitely a story. I mean, that's some cool stuff, and there's a lot of good set pieces in there. There's a really nice 3-act structure. Have to fill in a few details, but I think this is going to make a great story for the follow-up series to Olympians. Maybe loop it in with a whole bunch of stories of people who didn't, people who tried to brave the skies. Put that in there with a story of Icarus and Daedalus or something. People who flew and how it just went badly. I'm going to get further into that. We're going to, like I said, on Friday, I'm going to do Pegasus. It just seems, hey, you know what? I always talk about these super famous monsters that everybody knows. I don't know if we normally consider Pegasus a monster, but everyone knows Pegasus. Like 3-year-olds know who Pegasus is. They're like, oh, it's a Pegasus. Like, yeah, Pegasus is like probably even more famous than like Pegasus might be the most famous of all Greek monsters, and I think about it. Probably more famous than the Minotaur. Probably more famous than Medusa. Like, Pegasus is tops, and I haven't done Pegasus yet. We're going to do Pegasus. And, of course, we will talk about this. I saw Divine Megan mentioned Pegasus. By the way, if you're worried, Pegasus, this isn't the end of Pegasus. Pegasus lives in some stables beneath Mount Olympus. So after he gets bit on the butt and he kicks off Bellerophon, he just flies back and he goes eat some, like, awesome oats or something. So... let's leave it. I'm not going to leave this drawing in the background on the Chimera. So, man, that was today's lecture on the Chimera and Bellerophon. I hope that was good for everybody. So, let's take it open. If anybody's got any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them. Let me see if anybody's asked anything already. Yeah, he mentions this story feels very much ancient Greek. Yeah, it's a very super prototypical Greek story. Like, guy getting help from the gods, a lot of double crossing and back dealing, a guy who doesn't remember his place among the gods. It's amazing how every story has that. There's just this moment of utter hubris where they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to challenge the gods. Why not? I'm just a dude. I'm pretty strong. I could lift 800 pounds over my head, but like, why not challenge some dudes who could change into anything and throw a mountain at me? That seems like a good idea. Let's see. A lot of side conversations here about George the Turtle. Was Bellerophon in the Iliad? Sorry, I haven't read it yet. So Bellerophon doesn't appear as a character. Like, he's already dead long before the Iliad begins. He's of generations before. But there are mentions of him. I don't think he even appears in the Odyssey when Odysseus goes to Underworld. But there are parts... So a lot of the stuff that happens in the Iliad is characters will mention other characters and they'll tell stories. And sometimes they tell them in very familiar ways. Because if you were an ancient Greek person hearing this poem being told to you, you would know these other stories. So sometimes they're just kind of offhand mentions. And in the Iliad, there's mentions just of like, oh yeah, Bellerophon, the guy who did this. I think, weirdly, in the Iliad, they only talk about him challenging Mount Olympus. I don't think there's any mention of him fighting the Chimera. That's a little bit later, and I think Hesiod actually mentions that. But it's just but that's also just the way that Homer would have spoke about that. Just kind of offhand. He's like, oh yeah, you're being very dumb right now and comparing yourself to the gods, just like that guy Bellerophon did, and that ended badly for him. You get a lot of stuff like that, where it's just people making little comments. Much the same way, like, you and I and all the people watching this might do this. We know the myths really well, and we might make a reference to stuff that a person who doesn't know the myths is like, wait, what are you talking about? Like, that's kind of the stuff you see in the Iliad as far as Bellerophon's role. Let's see. If dryads are trees and naiads are water, what are nymphs? So that's a good question. Nymphs are often associated with both of those as well. And I think a good way to think... This is from Greek Mythology Fanatic, right? Like, you even sometimes have certain nymphs who are identified as being, like, the nymph of a specific tree. So I think a good way to think of it is maybe think of nymph as, like, a general, like, overview name. And then if you want to get specific, like with dryads and naiads, that might be like a specific type of nymph and that they're related to this. That sort of thing, I think I've mentioned this in other episodes, like, we really like in the modern day to categorize these things. We like everything to have its place. And I think, honestly, that's one of the reasons why people are so into Greek mythology, because there's, like, the family trees and the relations and everything creates. But sometimes in the ancient Greek world, when they were telling these stories, because they didn't have a Bible, like one set book, a lot of the, like, ideas and, like, groupings would kind of float and change. Like, you see sometimes when I give family trees here, like, I'll be like, okay, sometimes this character is an Oceanid, and sometimes this character is a Nereid. Like, they would know the people, and then just the ideas, or like the personages, I guess, the ideas of what they were would kind of migrate. So I feel like nymph is a good general term, but like a nymph could be a nymph of a rock or of a tree or of a water, a specific body of water. But then if you get into the specific terms like naiads, you wouldn't have a naiad of a tree. It's more like just like a breakdown almost by species, if that makes sense. Ranka asks, did Bellerophon have any children? Yes, he did. And actually, that was one of the things I wanted to mention. So, Bellerophon is maybe, to give a little of his family tree. So I leaned into the Poseidon bit, but I mentioned his dad is Glaucus. Glaucus is a son of Sisyphus. We all know Sisyphus. Sisyphus, the guy who has to roll the rock up the hill. Sisyphus, who literally bound death, bound Thanatos himself, tried to defeat the idea of mortality. So you can see this kind of runs in the family, right? Even if Glaucus isn't really his dad. So he's got Sisyphus. He does have some kids. I feel like there's not any one child you could point to as being a super famous kid. Like, remember how I mentioned that the princess that he marries, that Iapetes' daughter, like, depending on the source, every source, she has a different name. Like, I remember one of them is Alexandra. That's an easy one to remember. I feel like his kids kind of float, too, that they just have all different names. Like, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if we were to read the Iliad, if there's a kid there that's maybe credited as being the child of Bellerophon. Because you see, like, a lot of, like, third-generation heroes in that and such. Megan's asking, is there only one Pegasus or are there many? So, Pegasus is one guy, the son of Poseidon and Medusa. The term Pegasus has come to mean winged horses everywhere. And we've all seen, just being alive, we've seen pictures of Pegasuses with wings and like of course they have wings. A Pegasus that wing is called a horse, George. We've seen pictures of multiple Pegasuses. There are sometimes references in Greek mythology to other winged horses. In fact, there is even a winged horse that has a unicorn horn. I forget what type of unicorn it's called, but they're referred to as winged horses, not Pegasus. That the idea of taking Pegasus and using it as a name for winged horses, that's a more modern invention. Haven Olivia is asking a question that is kind of going to feed into Asgardians, my follow-up series. Pegasus versus Odin's eight-legged horse Sleipnir. Who would win? Now, this is a good fight, good matchup, because they're both actually, if you think about demigods, Pegasus is the son of Poseidon. Sleipnir is the son of Loki. Loki is actually Sleipnir's mother, because Loki was very gender fluid. It's a weird story. He has 8 legs, so he can run fast, but he might also maybe trip over himself. He certainly can't fly. So I'm giving Pegasus this one. Sleipnir's running around really fast on the ground, but like Pegasus is up in the air and just can like dive bomb him. I don't know. Do they have riders on them? That would maybe make a difference. If so, I mean, if you put in, I think Odin could probably beat Bellerophon in a fight, but I mean, who knows? I'm going to still put my money on Pegasus. Titans must be able to shapeshift because Kronos turned into a horse to father Chiron. There is one version of the myth. This is from Scott Tasaglione. There is one version where Chiron is the son of Kronos. It's kind of a weird, more obscure version. There's a lot of different versions where Chiron comes from. A lot of times, even though he is a centaur, and this kind of ties into what we're talking about with the Pegasus, he is given a different family. Like, even though he looks exactly like them and he lives with the other centaurs, he's not descended from them the same way. I really have to do a centaur episode where we just talk about like the different stuff. I know I talked a little bit about Chiron on, I think it was the Jason episode. So, yeah, I mean, I'd be hard-pressed, although it'd be interesting to see if there's anybody else could think of another myth where a Titan is specifically mentioned as shape-changing. I know this goes into the idea of in modern days we like to categorize stuff. I really leaned very heavily in my characterization of the Titans and of the Olympians in the series Olympians, that the big difference between them is Titans are titanic and huge, but pretty much locked into the one form, whereas the Olympians are very fluid in their appearance, and they could take any shape as easily as they change their mind. I don't think that was as laid out as clearly. That wasn't a strict rule in actual original Greek myth as what I made it for retelling to a modern audience. But that being said, I really can't think of too many instances where Titans shape change, except for that one kind of weird version. I want to say that's Hyginus, where you have Chiron being fathered by, what's his name, Kronos in the form of a horse. Megan asks why Bellerophon can't go to Olympus like Heracles. Well, that's a good question. Heracles had to do his 10 and then later 12 labors to prove himself worthy. He also had Zeus actively really promoting for him the entire time. He had Athena and Hermes in his pocket. Well, not his pocket. It sounds like he owns them. But they were like really pulling for him. He had a lot of help. And it was very clearly laid out. He had to do these great deeds in order to do it. And even Hera, who, as we talked about in the Heracles episode and the Hera episode, she's often portrayed as the villain of that story, but she even breastfed him as a child to help save his life. So he had a lot of support on the god side. Bellerophon, he gets the help from his dad on that big one occasion. Dad's like, hey, go get your brother. But aside from that, he seems to be acting independently of gods a lot. And it might be because Bellerophon, maybe because he killed that guy Belleros or his brother. Although Heracles killed Linus, his music teacher, so Heracles is a murderer too. I'm not sure why. It could just come down to, hey, if your dad's Zeus and you want to go to Olympus, that's better than having your dad be Poseidon. And, I will go to this. I think that we don't know why. We know that Bellerophon falls out of favor with his people. There's a lot of weird allegations about Bellerophon, and there's an expression where there's smoke, there's fire. Maybe Bellerophon did some bad stuff that just didn't survive to us. We know that there was a lot of plays and things written about him that have been lost. We only have snippets or descriptions of what they were about. So there was a lot more to the character of Bellerophon that we don't know anymore. So it'd be interesting to see what was there. Renka asks, my dad wants to know if we can get Unrigged from Word Bookstore. Are they open yet? Yes, they are officially open. You can get Word from my book. Where is it? Just doing a little pitch. My new book, Unrigged, is available from Word Bookstore. And like I said, the event I'm doing there tonight at 7. I'm not literally going to be there because we can't really go and do events there. I'm going to be doing it a live, just like the Instagram Live on Word's their Instagram. If you go to Word right now on their Instagram page, there is a link where you can buy the book Unrig. And I would love it. First off, I love when you buy my book because it's my book and it makes me happy and it's good for me and it's good for my business, my company, and not my company, my publisher. Everyone's good. It's also a great book. It's really important right now. Tells you a lot about how to make a difference in the world. And anybody wants to join me in, if, like I said, you didn't get enough George O'Connor today, you can come see me talk with Dan Newman later on tonight at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern on Word's Instagram Live. Also, words are failing me. I gotta take a nap or something. Let's see. What else do we have? Did you intend for Poseidon and Hades to... Oh, this is also from Scott Staglione. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. It's a lot of consonants there up front. Did you intend for Poseidon and Hades to be taller than Zeus? Yes. Yes, I did. I don't know if I've ever put this into a book. I know I've definitely told people this who've met me live. I think a lot about the fact that Zeus is the youngest brother, but he's ostensibly the king of the gods. And then Poseidon is the middle child. And I think it's very obvious in the myths. You see a lot of characterization that Poseidon heavily resents his brother Zeus. He feels like, I'm older. I should be in charge of you. But Zeus had the benefit of not being eaten by Kronos when he was born. He was raised independent. He had Mother Earth on his corner helping him overthrow stuff. He was anointed the king of the gods. Also, when they pulled the lots, he gets the outside world. He gets the sky. So Poseidon... he just kind of always manifests himself about 2 inches taller than his brother. It's a little thing he does. I've also pointed out he has better cheekbones. He gives himself better cheekbones. He basically, because Zeus could look like anything he wants, and Zeus could be any size. Like if Zeus is 6 foot tall, Poseidon is 6 foot 2. If Zeus is 60 foot tall, Poseidon is 62 feet tall. He's always going to make himself just a little bit bigger. And then Hades, he's kind of like, well, I don't want to be left out of this. So he always makes himself just a tiny bit bigger than Poseidon. So if Poseidon is 60 foot tall, or 62 feet tall, then Hades would be 64 foot tall. Just it's just a weird little game they have. And it's really funny because it must create a creep going up and up and up. And like, one day all the gods like, why is your heads touching this shit? Like, Zeus is bigger, he started. And like, just becomes a whole thing. But yeah, that's very much on purpose. I spent a lot of time thinking about the relationships of them as a family, because that's what makes the Olympians so interesting to me. That's the fact that they're a big dysfunctional family. And I think about like how I'm the oldest in my family, right, of the kids. I have 4 sisters and a brother. And luckily, I'm taller than all of them. And if you've ever met me in real life, I'm not tall. But I've managed to be. But if I wasn't, I would want to be taller. I'd want to be the taller one. If I could change my shape, I would make sure I was the tallest. And then that's what Poseidon does. And that's what Hades does. So we're down to 42 seconds. Just out of spite. Exactly, little cereal. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you so much. Join me back here Friday at 3 p.m. where we will be talking about Pegasus. And if you're so inclined, join me tonight at 7 o'clock on Word Bookstore's Instagram, where I'll be talking with author Dan Newman about my new graphic novel, which just came out yesterday, Unrig. So many pictures. Very few of them are Greek gods, but they're still cool. Thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you all soon. All right, bye-bye.